Brow when you hear free money from the government. Will these $1,200 checks be taxed? Will retired people get a check? How about my college-aged kid? And when are we going to see the check? I mean, well, we probably won't see an actual check. It's 2020. And in other news, we're taking an explosive trip 20 years back into the KGW vault. Here's the story.
And good evening. Welcome to the story. I'm Dan Haggerty, and I'm talking a bit slower tonight because my mom texted me and said I talk too fast on the show. So I'm doing this exaggerated rebuttal because that's what people do to their parents. Which is why I found this email I got last night from a girl named Brooke Ramsey so interesting. And I call her a girl, but I don't actually know how old she is. I'm just kind of guessing based on the message. She asked, "Hey Dan, my dad won't let me go hang out with my friend. Is he right or wrong?" Well, hey, Brooke, real talk for just a minute. I think I can be honest with you since I think you're my only teenage viewer. Parents aren't always right. But in this case, your dad's spot on. Now, I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but your dad is trying to protect you and your friend and your friend's parents and their grandparents and, frankly, everybody else. Even if you feel fine, you know, you could still be carrying it, or they might be. Imagine how bad you would feel if you accidentally gave it to somebody who you cared about. To me, it kind of sounds like you have a pretty decent dad, so don't be too hard on him. Oh, and Dad, something about your daughter's note left me with this familiar feeling. And just a heads up, get ready for many more years of it. That said, Brooke, ask your dad about the $500 check in the mail from Uncle Sam. Lots of people have been writing in with questions about that $2 trillion stimulus package that may get passed any day and what it means for you. But look, discussing this entire stimulus package is kind of like trying to eat an entire cow in one bite, or a vegan cow in one bite, if that's your sort of thing. So we're going to take this one bite at a time, and tonight focus on the $1,200 check. So just so we're all on the same page here, this is what would happen assuming the House passes this bill and President Trump signs it, which is expected to happen quickly. If it does, individuals who earn less than $75,000 a year will receive a one-time payment of $1,200. Married couples who earn less than $150,000 a year will receive $2,400. Each child aged 16 or younger adds an additional $500 to that amount. For every $100 you make over $75,000, you will get $5 less from the government, which means individuals who make $99,000 a year or more will get nothing. Okay, are you with me so far? Good. Now, we're going to go step by step and answer some of the questions we've been getting from a lot of people. And this first one is probably the number one question. Trish Yurgis was one of many people who asked, "Hey Dan, are these emergency relief checks taxable income?" I'll let an economist handle that one.
At the federal level, they're not taxable. They won't change your eligibility for income assistance programs or food stamps or things like that. And so at the state level, it's going to vary state by state and whether they conform to the national code or not.
So no, it won't be taxed federally, and it'll be up to the states to decide if they want to tax it. Mark T. Sigler asked another question that a lot of you have been thinking about. Hey Dan, are retired people supposed to receive the $1,200 stimulus funds? The answer is yes. Most people receiving Social Security and disability payments will also get the stimulus. Since people who get Social Security don't file taxes, the government will get your information and all the stuff they need from you through the Social Security Administration. There is one exception on that you need to know, though. People who receive SSI, Supplemental Security Income, they are excluded because they're already receiving federal assistance. Okay, more questions here. JG wanted to know, hey Dan, is the federal income to determine payment the 2018 taxable income figure or the adjusted gross income, or what? So the simplest answer here is if you've already filed your taxes for 2019, that'll be based on your 2019 adjusted gross income. If you haven't filed yet, it'll be based on your 2018 adjusted gross income. Kay Waller has a question about kids. Hey Dan, I was wondering what the stimulus package would mean for college students who are claimed by their parents as dependents on taxes. Kay, no, the extra $500 is only for kids who are 16 and under. So maybe you have some super advanced middle schooler taking college classes, then yes, they'll get some money, but most college kids won't unless they file their own taxes. As for when you should expect to see the cash, so Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin says he expects it to come within 3 weeks. And as long as the IRS has your bank account information, it will directly transfer right into your account via direct deposit. You should receive a paper notice in the mail shortly after your payment is set. If you get that notice but don't get any money after a few weeks, you should contact the IRS. Look, I know that was a lot more that we need to talk about, right? It probably only answered a couple of the questions that you were burning inside you. So we have this whole segment for you up on YouTube if you want to take another look back at it. And I know a lot of the questions, again, weren't answered, so you can watch Kristen Severance at 7 o'clock. She has this Q&A special that we've been doing every night and getting to a lot more of those answers for you. Or you can always ask us again. Use hashtag HeyDan, and we'll do our best to answer all of your questions. Now, as for our big story tonight, we want to talk about people who have coronavirus. As of today, the United States has more confirmed cases than China or Italy, and 316 of them are in Oregon as of today. But I want to read a question by Philip Kirkpatrick. He said, "Hey Dan, why are we not learning of where people diagnosed with COVID-19 have been so we can backtrack or stay away from those areas? I think this is beyond patient confidentiality. It has more to do with public safety." Well, the Oregon Health Authority has been publishing the counties where these cases are showing up, but that's about it. Other states are releasing zip codes. Oregon health officials have said that they will eventually release more detailed information. And while Philip makes a decent point there and says it has to do with public safety, Kyla Boshi learned why some people think the public shouldn't know.
As the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread, many people are left to wonder, where are the hot spots? And while some local governments have published detailed maps of confirmed cases down to the zip code or neighborhood, Oregon has not. This lack of specific data makes it difficult to assess which communities are being hardest hit. Information that could help first responders and healthcare workers. Explain Chunwei Chi, director of the Center for Global Health at Oregon State University.
When they see patients from a certain zip code, certain area, they will be take more precautions.
For example, residents in Los Angeles can look on a website to find out how many confirmed coronavirus cases there are in their neighborhood. Officials in South Carolina release figures by zip code. And even in hard-hit King County, Washington, there are heat maps broken down by zip code. In contrast, Oregon simply provides total cases by county.
The challenge is that doesn't tell you much. In sprawling Multnomah County, there are 45 confirmed cases. We don't know if those are isolated to one particular neighborhood or spread across the county. It's useful information in planning and allocating resources.
The information, in my opinion, will be more valuable for the healthcare provider than for the general public.
She warns specific data could be misinterpreted by the public. Certain people, groups, or neighborhoods might be unfairly stigmatized.
People begin to be suspicious who in our neighborhood are infected.
And these maps could give some people a false sense of security because they don't see cases in their neighborhood. That's especially true with coronavirus because those who are infected don't always show symptoms and aren't always tested. So there's a chance they wouldn't show up on the map. Kyla Boshi, KGW News.
Now, of course, all of this is contingent upon large numbers of people getting tested, which really isn't quite happening yet here in Oregon. We asked the state for an update today. Remember those 20,000 coronavirus tests that the governor said were on the way through a private contractor called Quest Diagnostics? Well, they got back to us and they said that those tests are actually happening. They're just happening at Quest's lab, which is not in Oregon. So they take the samples from people, then they send them away, and right now those tests are currently being used. But the state wasn't able to give us exact numbers. We'll keep asking. As for the rest of Oregon's stockpile of PPE, the equipment like face shields, medical gowns, masks, it is dire. Now, look, we don't do hyperbole on the story. It's not our thing at all. So I really hope that you know how serious I am when I say that this is an urgent crisis on our hands. Oregon hospitals have depleted both their gowns and their splash shields. There are none left. None. They've also used up to 95% of their face shields, 80% of those N95 respirator masks. Doctors and nurses in some places are being told to reuse their masks 5 times, which is like unheard unheard of for them. So yeah, it is really, really bad in hospitals right now. And that is why Governors Brown and Inslee told President Trump today on a phone call with the nation's governors that this was a big deal to them. President Trump reportedly told the governors that his administration wants to be the backup for the states. Which brings us to tonight's quote of the day by Governor Inslee, who reportedly replied, "We don't need a backup. We need Tom Brady." You know who else needs Tom Brady? New England. But I digress. Governor Brown also wants more help from the federal government. On that same call, she urged the president to invoke the Defense Production Act. Now, that would order American companies to make more PPE right now. And right now, companies can just decide whether or not they want to pitch in. And all 50 states are then competing with those supplies or for those supplies in bidding wars. And in many cases, that forces volunteers like Maria Michalzak to hand-make replacement masks for first responders.
I grew up in a time where the American healthcare system was the best in the world. We were the best trained, we were the best resourced, but seeing what's happened now, it's heartbreaking to me.
Good news is private companies like Nike and Intel and Gap, they're shifting their production to help fill those holes. But until the Defense Production Act is invoked, it's still really their choice to help out. Now, this week on The Story, we've talked about how staying home isn't always the safest option for everyone. There's a lot of concern about an increase in domestic violence for people who live with an abuser. We got some stats back from Portland police that support that. In early March, before Portland declared a state of emergency over coronavirus, domestic violence arrests in the city were up 12% compared to last year. Then over the past couple of weeks, it's gone up 27% compared to last year. Now, even though a lot of stuff is shut down, you can still get help. Many shelters are still open, and you can always call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. The number's on your screen now, 1-800-799-7233. If you don't feel safe calling that, reach out to a trusted friend or family member, and in an emergency, you should always call 911.
Safe to say, Governor Brown and President Trump don't agree on many things. But they do agree that it would be a bad idea for us to go cramming into the DMV to get a real ID. And keeping Portland weird by keeping your neighborhood's hands super clean. And we're taking an explosive trip into the KGW vault when the story continues.
Okay, so this first question is a great one. The person says, "Hey Dan, when the coronavirus first hit the news, one of the messages that numerous medical experts and media outlets expressed was that masks don't do anything to protect you from the virus. So why is the lack of masks such an issue?" Great question. So here's the answer. Not all masks are created equal. Some will protect you from catching a virus, some won't. The N95 masks used in hospitals are able to protect you from catching a virus as long as there's an airtight seal between the mask and the face all the way around. That's why it's so important that doctors and nurses get those N95 masks to protect themselves while taking care of sick people. Please keep these questions coming. We read them all. We do our best to answer them using the hashtag HeyDan. All right, time for another viewer question. This person wants to know, with all of the hand washing that we've been doing, I noticed that my hands have become dried out and cracked. Is it okay to use a lotion or something like that to battle the dryness? Is there something that doesn't compromise the clean? This is an important question because when hands get too dry, they start to crack, and this creates more places for bacteria to invade. Overwashing, like we've all been doing, also strips skin of protective oils and waxes. So doctors say it's a good idea to moisturize after washing. And if you're home and your home is clean, you can just simply moisturize with hand cream after washing and drying. If hands are very dry and starting to crack, you want to use an ointment instead of a lotion. Please keep these questions coming using the hashtag HeyDan.
And thanks to everyone who's sending in those questions using the hashtag HeyDan. I know I say it a lot, but we really couldn't do this show without you and your questions, even when you have a username like StingFan222. Are we talking the police, the WWE, the Hobbit? What are we talking about here? Now, as long as you ask good questions, we're going to keep looking for answers for you. StingFan222 asked, "Hey Dan, why is the governor not shut down the DMV? I had to go in to renew my driver's license, had to put my face in a machine to test my vision. What gives?" First of all, ew. I mean, even pre-corona, ew. Second of all, Well, that tweet was sent to us 6 days ago. Since then, the governor signed her Stay Home, Save Lives executive order. As of yesterday, only 6 DMVs in Oregon are staying open, and by appointment only, and only for commercial driver tests and licenses. And I know a lot of you have been wondering whether you need to pack the DMV in July to get that real ID card. Well, we found out you don't. On Monday, President Trump granted Governor Brown's request to extend the October 1st deadline by 1 year. So there's something to look forward to, I guess, in 2021. All right, now let's take a little dip into the KGW vault. Actually, it's our vault of our sister station in Seattle. And if you were living in the Pacific Northwest 2 decades ago, then you probably remember when they blew up the Kingdome in Seattle. It happened 20 years ago today. How about that? That is where the Mariners and the Seahawks used to play. They demolished it so they could build a new football stadium, CenturyLink Field. If you got an idea for us for the KGW Vault, let us know. Reach out using the hashtag #HeyDan. Now, while we're talking about all this non-coronavirus news, we want to share some other stuff that we think is important going on out there that you might not have heard about so far. It's a little segment we call In Other News.
In other news, Oregon State Representative Diego Hernandez has been accused of domestic violence. Andrea Valderrama, the chair of the David Douglas School Board and a former Portland City Council candidate, filed a restraining order against Hernandez earlier this month. She says while they were living together last year, he threatened her and threw things at her while drunk. Valderrama has now requested the restraining order to be dismissed because she says Hernandez wanted a settlement that included a non-disclosure agreement. She told KGW, "I rejected these demands and filed the dismissal not because the abuse didn't occur, but because I chose not to be silent about it, despite threats to my credibility and financial stability." Hernandez denied the domestic abuse claims in an interview with the Willamette Week. He told KGW that a trial would have allowed for you to have more insight into what took place from direct evidence and witnesses, and asked that people withhold judgment on both of us. Portland police say a woman stole a dog from its owner in the Pearl District. It happened on Tuesday near the Fields Park. Police say Niobe Williams ran up to a woman walking her husky, yelled, "Give me that dog," shoved her, and ripped the leash from her hands. Police caught up with Williams, who told them that she took the dog because she thought she'd be a better owner. Police say Williams also had another husky with her that was in poor health that she claimed she found. Police took that dog to a pet hospital. Washington Governor Jay Inslee just signed a bill to allow sports gambling in the state's tribal casinos. But the Seattle Times reports that it could be months before betting starts because casinos are closed right now. Oregon launched a sports betting app last year after the Supreme Court allowed sports betting across the country. And that's In Other News.
I'm Matt Safino in my home garden and my home weather station. Okay, it's my yard. But as many of you have been doing, we have been homeschooling here. And the lesson today was about how to build and plant a garden. Now, it wasn't just about throwing seeds in the ground. They had to do geometry, draw out their maps, do the spatial distancing between the seeds and the planting, and really plan it out. So there was math involved, and there's geometry, and a whole lot of fun, too.
Good morning, juniors. Welcome to the 9th day of homeschool. Enzo is the helper of the day today. Theme today is spring gardening. And later today we will make our garden journals and plant starters.
And this is the old school bell. Actually, my mom gave this to me before she passed. This is an ancient New England school bell. She used to call us home to dinner for this, and now it's being repurposed here in homeschool. They've got their cubby holes. We're ready to go.
And we're making our garden journals. We're making them because we want to record everything that we're doing to make a garden.
All right, Enzo, what do you got going on?
I like blue, and my favorite color is green. So I did a green stem with leaves to make it actually themed like a garden.
Oh, spring, you are beautiful and sweet. And it always feels like a summer's day is hatching. Oh, spring, how I am thankful for you.
So this is my garden. I chose it because I already have like a built-in thing that it's a planter box that I already have built.
What are you going to plant?
Artichokes, tomatoes, spinach. Ode to spring trees. Oh spring, how nice is your breeze, your lovely blossoms and healthy trees. Your warmth helps the trees grow and gives us fresh air. So spring, please don't go away.
And I'm standing in front of Enzo's garden plot right here, as a matter of fact. We still have some tilling to do, and we have yet to get the seeds in the ground, but we got a bunch of seeds. Here's watermelon, lettuce, we have snap peas, winter squash, cherry bell radishes, cucumbers, pole beans, a whole lot. Vivian's plot is over there by the forsythia. So again, we had a lot of fun with this. We're going to get the seeds in the ground, and they're going to also do starts on the inside as well, because I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of the local nurseries are completely out of starts. So we're making our own starts. That's part of the lesson. Dan, back to you.
Matt, thank you, man. Guys, Matt's been talking about his homeschool stuff for a while, so I'm sure if you need some good ideas, hit him up on social media. I'm sure he'd be happy to share them with you. Now, earlier I said that we only had one teenage viewer. Apparently I was wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. I'm going to read some comments after the break. And it's no community library, but at this point, this is probably a better idea.
Okay, this viewer wants to know, hey Dan, I'm an independent contractor for Postmates. I pick up food and deliver to people's homes. Can I go to work? The answer to that, yes, because you are working in the restaurant business, but in a to-go capacity, you can go to work. But if you can, you should definitely limit your interactions with customers. Leave the food outside the door for your customers. Keep those questions coming. We read them all. We do our best to answer them. Use the hashtag HeyDan.
And now, from the Story Community Theater.
Whatever happened to predictability?
Do you think I'm weird? Definitely. No, man, seriously. Am I weird?
That's right.
Well, I like pretzel day.
This person wants to know, hey Dan, can the coronavirus be transmitted through mosquito bites? Short answer here, no. It is not a blood-borne pathogen. In order to cause the disease, the virus needs to have access to the airways or the gut, where they have cells that have the handle that the virus needs to latch onto in order to cause an infection. Please keep sending in those questions. We are doing our very best to answer them. And you know what? It makes us all feel a little bit better that we're able to help you in just some way during such an unsure time. Just use the hashtag HeyDan.
Kristen, thank you. And we are back to keeping Portland weird with an entirely new idea to keep your neighborhood disinfected. Thanks to Redditor Jester114 for letting us use this picture of the neighborhood hand sanitizing station. It is a weird time to be alive, folks, but Portland was made for weird things. So if you see something out there keeping Portland weird, we want to see it. Email us at thestory@kgw.com, or of course you can always use the hashtag HeyDan. Let's get to some comments. So at the top of the show, somebody wrote in, it seemed like a teenager, saying that their dad didn't want them to hang out with friends and something like that, if he was right or not. And I said that she's the only teenager watching us. Well, then I hear from Delaney. Earlier on the show, you said you have no teenage viewers. I want you to know that I watch your show every single day, and I love it. My best friend and I love your show, and we text each other about the story during the show, and we are both teenagers, and I am shocked by that, but excited to have you. Thanks for being on board. That's awesome. And then it was also combined with me saying that my mom thinks I talk too fast, which, as Mark said, she's right. You do talk too fast. Look, we got a lot of other questions about the stimulus and the $1,200 check and what you should expect, and a lot more specific questions, which I knew we would get. We're going to continue to answer those again. Kristen answers those coming up at 7 o'clock in a half-hour special. And for those of you wondering if my jacket is still too tight, this is the one. I got a fitness app that I downloaded yesterday, and I had a salad for lunch. So there you go. About to be baggy again. Thanks for being part of the story tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.